Greetings and konnichiwa, and welcome back to the Onyx Tavern Vlog series on Power Rangers Dino Charge. I'm your host, Rick the Barkeep, and today let's talk about episode number 9, When Logic Fails. So, it's been a while since we talked about Power Rangers Dino Charge. The show, of course, has been on hiatus, but I have also been on hiatus, and for that I do apologize. But I do want to take this quick opportunity to just point out that because I'm backlogged in these episodes, I am still going by my original format, which is watch one episode at a time, review that episode only looking back and not looking forward to the next one. And the reason I want to tell you guys this is because I've had this several times in a couple of the Tokuger vlogs. It's basically people are saying, well, this is going to happen later on, blah, 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 whatever, either spoiling it for me or telling me what I say in my vlog is completely wrong based on what the exact next episode is. So I just want to let you guys know that, yeah, I am doing it one episode at a time. I am backlogged, so if you guys have been watching and haven't been waiting for my vlogs, and you know what's going to go ahead and happen, well, first of all, please don't tell me. And second of all, don't go into the comments section just, saying, well, you should have watched this, or this happens next, so what you said is completely invalid, and all that stuff. Because I get it. You guys have looked ahead. You know what's going to happen. I don't. I've purposely tried not looking ahead, although Facebook is not kind to people like that. Anyway, so I just want to go ahead and ask politely, hey guys, please don't, go into the comments and, either spoil it or get mad at me because I didn't see the next episode and what I say is completely wrong based on the next episode. Because this is how the format works. When I get logged behind, these are the problems we run into. And again, all I can do is apologize for that. But I am still going to go ahead and give you guys a thoughtful analysis of this episode and based on what comes before. And if we do eventually get to an episode where something I do say is contradicted, then we'll address it. And of course, at the end of the series, once we get through all 40 episodes and whatever specials they have, then we'll go ahead and talk about the entire series and, again, what my thoughts were at a time and what they eventually became. So with that out of the way, let's actually talk about what happens in the episode. Basically, it boils down to our A-plot where the Rangers are trapped in an abandoned hospital and can't find their way out because there's a magical maze thing going on from the Puzzler monster, while at the same time Fury is trying to charge the Terror Charger so he can go ahead and get hold of the Terror Zord. Now, when I watched this episode, one of the first problems I actually had with it was that it actually seems like 2 episodes as opposed to 1. Now, I know the footage is based off a singular episode from Kyoryuger, but it really seems like that they should have split this up in Dino Charge, especially with the limited focus you're going to go ahead and have on the series, because again, you're taking 50 some episodes, compressing them down into 40 or 42, again, depends if they come with a special or movie or not, and it does make it difficult to pace things, but sometimes you just jam-pack too many things into an episode, and you end up with Super Mega Force. I hate to say it, but that's exactly what happens. And I think what they should have done is have this be a complete episode about Riley and his issues, as opposed to, his issues and what he's going through and his problems, and then have the whole Terrorzord thing probably take up a second episode, or have that as a minor plot in the middle of this. Because what actually ends up happening is that while they're doing all this, Fury finds the Zord, gets the Zord to attack the Rangers once, and then it runs away. There's so much more you could do with that, especially because it's an introduction of what is an evil Zord, and it really kind of comes in out of nowhere and then flies into nowhere, and that's it. There really isn't much going on with that particular plot, and they really do kind of seem at odds at times. Let's actually go into a little bit more detail so I can better explain this for you guys. First of all, let me tell you guys what I actually liked about the episode. I mean, first of all, we got Judd Lin, under the name of Chip Lin, writing it, and he's a veteran of Power Rangers, and he always comes out with quality episodes. Sometimes he has some clunkers like Shell Shocked and all that, but for the most part, I always enjoyed his episodes. He really did some great episodes of the latter half of Turbo, and of course Power Rangers in Space, and a couple of Lost Galaxy episodes that were really good. So the episode's in good hands with this writer. Second of all, our director, Charlie Haskell, who I did not look up any of his information at this point, I think he does a really good job at directing this episode because we're in a new set. We are doing things that we don't normally get to see in Power Rangers, and most of the episode is the Rangers unmorphed, which is really a breath of fresh air because you see so many episodes now where they instantly morph and then they're into the action and it's nothing but Sentai footage. It's chopped together haphazardly. Again, Super Mega Force. So the fact that they spend, 2/3 of this episode unmorphed and trying to solve a problem without their powers, it is a great breath of fresh air. Now, of course, I would argue that they should use their powers to get out of these situations. But the fact that they're doing this, it's still good, and I still like that. And the tricks that they use to show the Rangers actually going into a maze, it's really great. I mean, they're using practical effects. They're using camera tricks with doubles and everything. They don't actually use computer graphics and anything, except maybe that one scene where Chase goes outdoor and it's, the downtown or whatever, or I don't know how they did that, but that's the best part, is you don't know how, you have to keep guessing. But it's practical stuff, they got a body double who runs up the stairs, you think it's Shelby, and here comes the actual actress coming from downstairs. There is one brief little... I guess a goof or technical error in there, but you really kind of overlook it simply because everything else is pretty good there. Also, I really like the subplot that we have with Koda turning into the Cookie Monster. Yeah, it's goofy, but I think this is a good way of actually doing it. Because, frankly, you have a lot of characters in Power Rangers that do a lot of goofy and weird stuff that is out of character and doesn't fit the situation. Koda, on the other hand, who probably is my favorite Ranger at this point, it fits for him. That makes sense. He's worried about being hungry, so he's got to go eat. And he spends most of the time trying to get the cookie out of the vending machine. And again, the line he does when he says cookie, I mean, it's almost as funny as Schwarzenegger. But it's a good bit of comedy that does work. I don't think it's a problem. I don't see an issue with it. I mean, if you had this with Chase or Shelby or Tyler, then it's definitely out of character. But with Koda, it makes perfect sense, and it is ultimately funny. So I really enjoyed what they did there. But let's talk about some of the issues that I have. And first is this whole concept of logic, because... Alright, I'm going to pull out the Star Trek kind of stuff, but I really wish Spock was in this episode to really talk to these kids, particularly Riley, because I get what Chiplin is trying to go ahead and do. He's trying to make Riley the logical one and come to a conclusion that it's the only logical conclusion you can go ahead and reach. But I really don't think Riley's logic is flawed. And let's go to his example at the beginning of the episode, because I had to watch it a few times to really understand what he was trying to go ahead and say, because it is really confusing, and the visuals are having you focus on these little rolling balls, which also make no sense. So here's the setup for it. They're trying to figure out exactly what Fury and Poisandra and Sledge are all up to and stuff. And Riley's like, well, if we use logic, we can go ahead and figure it out. And his logic is basically all three of them are after three different goals. Power, love, and possibly revenge. That's what he says. And he says they're all working towards the same goal, which can only be achieved by gaining more power, like the Terrazord. And of course, using the Terrazord has to be done by powering the Terra Charger. And of course, Dr. Morgan goes into this whole thing about, well, in order to go ahead and do that, you have to power it up through a lab like ours. And it gets really confusing, to be quite honest. I wrote it down, but I'm still not even sure if I fully understand it. First of all, here's the fallacy in his logic. First of all, Riley believes that all three are working against each other. Poisandra is working against Sledge is working against Fury, and vice versa, and the entire, what I suppose is a love triangle, but I guess in this case is a power triangle. But first of all, he's privy to information he really should not have. Now, I did not go back and watch the first 8 episodes, but I'm pretty sure that what Riley knows is what we, the audience, know. because I think from Riley's perspective, he should know all these different things going on. I think he knows that Cassandra is Sledge's fiance. I think that was established in episode. I think they know Sledge wants the gems, but not exactly sure why he wants them. And of course, Fury wants, I think, revenge on the Keeper. But what he's implying is that he knows things about them that we, the audience, know, but he really should not know. And he's also under the belief that all three of them are conspiring against each other to obtain different goals, which I don't think is necessarily the case, because I think Cassandra is definitely on Sledge's side and not working against him, and she's not really even actively working against Fury. She's trying to encourage Sledge to get rid of him, and not bring him back on the ship during his exile, of course. But I don't think she's an active agent in this. She's really been more passive up to this point, for the most part. But again, his logic is based on information he really should not have, and then under the idea that they need the Terror Zord in order to do this. Now, he does ultimately say power to do that, but I don't know. I mean, I'm just not understanding where his logic is going. I think, I think Lin is trying to do something where it is airtight logic, but again, he's not DC Fontana, or he's not Gene Roddenberry. He's not any of those guys. And I don't think he can come up with a scenario for Power Rangers that can fit the way he wants to do it. Because here's ultimately what they basically come up with, is that they need to charge the Terror Chargers, what Fury needs to go ahead and do, and they need one lab like ours, which is what Dr. Morgan says, in order to go ahead and do so. And what I initially thought she meant was, in order to charge it, they're going to need to come to the lab. And to me, it's like, okay, so if you follow this through, then they're going to have to come here to go ahead and do it. So you have to defend your lab, you have to make sure they don't find it, or maybe you can set up a trap to get the charger. But then I listened to it a couple more times, because again, the dialogue in this entire sequence, it's really confusing. I listened to dialogue again. She says that there is one lab like ours. Now, if you subscribe to the fallacy that there is only one lab in the entire Earth, which again is in the Power Rangers universe, that can charge the Terror Charger, then you should be going after the other lab. Again, that's assumed if you subscribe to it. I believe at this point in Power Rangers history, there is another lab somewhere on Earth, or the moon, or wherever, Marinoi, Aquitar, that can charge it and get the Terror Charger. And since Sledge has a spaceship and he can go to other planets, he could always do that. Of course, well, Fury doesn't have access to his ship in this, but you get the point I'm trying to go ahead and say. They're subscribing there's only one other lab, and it seems what they're trying to do is find that other lab. But they don't do it. It's a plot thread that goes nowhere that ultimately makes that entire sequence pointless. And what do I mean by that? Because they find Chase, who accidentally ran into the Puzzler monster only because the Puzzler got fed up at a bunch of kids for not playing chess properly. So they found the base not through logic, but through dumb luck. Do you guys see what I'm trying to say here? That entire sequence is based on what I feel false logic, information they shouldn't have, and a premise that doesn't work within the Power Rangers universe. You could say, if they said that maybe in the first season, I can get it, but not here, the 22nd season. And then they also talk, and then the whole thing is basically, now we gotta go find that lab, but they don't have to go find it because they stumble upon it by accident. I mean, you guys see what I'm saying here, that it made no sense, had information shouldn't be there, and it ultimately resulted in nothing and just wasted time. That's the problem I have with this whole logic aspect of the episode, because it's not logical. I can tell you it's not logical. And the fact he has to use these little marbles as an example, yes, the marbles do play into the ultimate resolution of the episode, but at this point, it's just, I think what it was to distract the audience from what they were saying, because what they were saying did not make sense. That's, I think, ultimately what that problem was. Okay, a couple of other things here. Also, here, let's continue about Riley. Why does he suddenly have these little graphics in his head where he immediately knows how to calculate the distance and angles and the speed at which things travel and all that? I don't know where that came from. He hasn't had that before, and I really do suspect that he's not going to have this later in the series. Again, I haven't looked ahead or anything, but I just kind of get the feeling that this was something that was done for this episode, and I don't think it's going to be followed up upon. And I don't see why we had to go ahead and do that. You could have simply just had him look at something, and you have to figure out what he's thinking, and then he does the things with the marbles and whatnot, and you're like, oh, now I get it. Now it makes sense. And frankly, I don't even know if his math is correct. I'm sure the staff has fact checkers, and because like in Star Trek, they go, put the tech in the tech, and they send the actual scientists who do try to put some little bit of science in there. So I'm sure there was a math fact checker in whatever it is that Riley was saying. Now Riley's solution I like, kind of, because it's a low-tech solution. It's an easy one. Put the marbles through the vents. The Rangers realize they come through the vents, and that's how they get out. But first of all, it says something. I think it says more about the other Rangers than Riley, to the fact that he was the one who was able to get through the vents, but the other Rangers were not able to discover the vents. Now, Coda, I don't think, was really big on escaping anyway, because he was just hungry, and I don't think he realized that there was a maze. Shelby just kept trying to go up the stairs and didn't consider the fact of going down the stairs. Something you would at least probably try. And of course, nobody tried morphing. Again, I know it was a breath of fresh air, but the logical thing to do would be to try to morph. Such when Riley found a wall with bricks and you can't get out and you realize it's a maze, well, morph and shoot the damn thing. That's what I would have done. And of course, then Chase finds a door that leads out, but has like a 4-story drop. Again, all he has to do is morph, and he can jump down. And, as Linkara is so fond of pointing out, the physics in the Power Rangers universe are, bendable and not very solid. I really believe he could jump out of a 4-story window and survive. I mean, we saw Wes jump off a cliff and survive after being chased by a dinosaur. We've seen Mike float in the vacuum of space without being morphed or any oxygen. So I think it's reasonable to assume that Chase can fall down 4 stories or jump down 4 stories and still be all right, whether he is morphed or not. So again, it just kind of bothers me that the other Rangers were not smart enough to figure this stuff out. But again, the solution Riley uses is pretty clever. Also, I don't know why Riley agreed to playing the game with the monster. Maybe he thought he was going to lose because, first of all, you have a monster who's basically been playing games for 65 million years. And the game that they're playing, they call it chess, but it's no way designed like chess. Yeah, it looks like 3-dimensional chess, but the pieces seem to have no rhyme or reason to them. And you look on the squares, it was my understanding 3-dimensional chess, the small spaces would at least have like 4 squares on them. It's not even right. I mean, look at the game. It doesn't make any sense. So the fact that Riley is able to beat a monster who is over 65 million years old, plays games, that's his entire life and entire motif, and Riley's able to play a game he's never played before and actually win that game, that to me does stretch a little bit of credibility. So there's an issue that I have with that. Let's see, anything else regarding Riley's character? I think I pretty much said everything except, okay, so, and again, I have to go Star Trek on this one because I think they were definitely trying to channel this from Star Trek. So, Riley's the only one out, and he has a choice. Dr. Morgan's basically saying, you gotta go after Fury, you gotta stop him from Terrazord, but he decides to defy that and actually go after, go after to save his friends, to stop the Pulsar monster. And I immediately thought to myself, this is just like in Star Trek 4 when Chekhov is injured on the Enterprise and is taken to the hospital, and Spock insists to Captain Kirk, hey, we gotta go after him. And Kirk asks, is that the logical thing to do? And Spock is like, no, but it is the human thing to do. And I thought, oh my goodness, that's where they're going with it in this episode. And I really thought the wraparound at the end with Keeper and Dr. Morgan would actually would explore that. I mean, yes, they say it wasn't the logical thing to do, but it was the right thing to do. I really wish they went down that path of it is the human thing to do, because we have all these aliens and they're supposedly backstab each other, and they want to gain power, love, revenge, all that kind of stuff. And what separates the humans from the aliens, and it is their compassion. You can argue Sledge and Poisandra are in love with each other, but that's a discussion for another time. But you really need to separate our heroes from our villains, and putting Riley in a situation where he realizes what it means to be human, as opposed to being straight logical. Because that was Spock's journey the whole time, wasn't it? Was that he had to look beyond logic and look at the human thing to do. Because, when he sacrifices himself in Wrath of Khan, it is both the logical and human thing to go ahead and do. And when he risks the safety of the future, because they're hunting a bunch of humpbacks in that movie, when they're, risking that to go save Chekhov, because it is the human thing to do. That is what you do. That your compassion is what separates you from the aliens that are trying to attack you and stuff. And I really wish the episode would have gone that route. Would it be aping Star Trek? A little, but we haven't really had that in Power Rangers, where we do really compare the humans. We had a little bit of it in Operation Overdrive and in Samurai, where basically we see a bunch of former humans who have traded in their humanity and have given up being human, and thus they've lost compassion, which is why we see Furious kill his brother at the end, which is why we see Dayu giving up the notion of being human and everything. We see those things because they've lost their humanity, they've lost their compassion. And I really think the Rangers need to kind of realize that. Maybe not spell it out for the audience, but I really kind of wish they would go down that path. And I would like to see Riley really struggle with this a little bit more. I do want to see this happen with Riley in future episodes, where he is racked with guilt that now Fury has the Terrorzord. What does that mean? What are the consequences of this? And what does Riley have to deal with by the fact that they got the Terrorzord? That's going to be in the back of his mind. Every time the Terrorzord attacks the city, attacks the Rangers, hurts somebody, he's like, I could have stopped this. Yes, at risk to my friends, but I could have stopped it, and maybe make him question, was it the right decision? The Rangers probably could have survived a little bit longer. All he had to do was just stop Fury. That's what I'm trying to go ahead and get at, is that they need to do more with this than what they did in this episode so far. And just really quickly, Fury, I'm really confused on kind of what Fury was planning on doing. I don't know how you use old medical equipment and lights to charge the charger. It seems what happened is, and this is going to probably carry over to the next episodes, whatever is escaping from Fury. Whatever is escaping from Fury's chest seems to be what's powering the charger. And they were able to use the medical equipment to do that. I don't know how medical equipment does that. I'm sure you probably wanted to go to a power plant or someplace that deals with power distribution. Heck, a pair of freaking jumper cables would have been more logical than what they were doing. See what I did there? But that's going to play into something later on, because both Riley and Tyler know it, and they think it is something dangerous. What it is, who knows? Could they be going the route of Kyryuger? Maybe. I don't know. I mean, honestly, I really don't know. I think it'd be lazy if they did that, but I would hope to see we see something creative here. Maybe it's something a little bit different than I think what everybody is expecting based on what the Sentai footage gives us. Let's see. Is there anything else? I mean, I write a whole page of notes every time I watch these episodes. Sometimes I watch, a couple of times and write 2 pages. Oh yeah, I just love how Fury's exile is only a few hours, and he's back in the good grace with Sludge because he has the new Zord. It's like they say, you have one last chance, and then that one last chance lasts 10 episodes. It's pretty funny. Beyond that, I think this is, again, I think it's a good episode. I'm gonna go ahead and wrap up here. I think it's a decent episode. There are some issues that bring it down, but I think it makes up for that by having Riley make that choice, by having the direction that we had within the hospital, and then just the comedy with Coda, and the fact that we see the Rangers unmorph through 2/3 of the episode. I think that's the kind of stuff that brings this episode up. But again, certainly this should have been 2 episodes where they're trapped in the hospital, and then maybe Fury makes it to the location by the end of the episode, and then in episode 10, that's when they debut the Terror Zord. That's your opening. Here comes the Zord, and now we have to deal with it, and of course you can carry on the continuity from the previous episode, which, by the way, they did a pretty good job here, because they had to remind you what happened, seeing as it's been like 3 or 4 months since the last episode. So good job on that, I would say as well. So that's all my thoughts I have about Episode 9, When Logic Fails. When we come back, we will go ahead and discuss Episode 10, and we will be at the 1/4 waypoint of Power Rangers Dino Charge. So I'll see you guys there, but until next time, thank you for listening, have a good evening, and the tavern is now closed.